Okay, so just so you know, the whole internet can watch us, but that's probably okay.
It's fine with me. It's nice that Mount Zion gets a little press.
Okay, we are live on the website and we will wait to Rabbi Spilker and you are good to go.
Okay. Probably the sanctuary is very crowded with people, and that's why he's late. No big deal.
I was about to say that there are probably a lot of people wanting to wish him a Shana Tova.
Yeah. It was good turnout, right? I mean, it's the room was packed.
Was the middle wall opened or not?
They did open it, so far as I could tell. Yeah, so we had the additional seating.
So you had the additional seating required. I mean, in this morning, it was the family services have changed over the years. It used to be packed and didn't seem packed at all. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it is a Monday, right? So sometimes the kids have to be in school. Okay. Hello.
Hi there. I am so sorry. That's we were caught in conversation. Welcome. Looks like a couple others are just joining us right now too, so that's perfect. So since a couple of you were already, Greg, we were already talking, maybe you were already introducing yourselves to each other. But we are a small group, so I would love to do that if we could. So just if we could just say who we are and where we are physically right now. And then this time is an open conversation, which I've been looking forward to. So Gregory, start with you.
Well, I'm Gregory Bard. I live in Menominee, Wisconsin, and happy to be here.
Welcome. Moti.
Hi, I'm Moti. I'm in Montreal, Quebec here. It was a very nice service. Glad to be here.
So glad you found us. That's great. David and then Nancy.
Hi, Dave Epstein, and I'm in Mendota Heights, so I'm not far away, but I'm still online.
Nancy. Oh, you're muted. And then Ronnie after you. There we go. You're unmuted, but we still can't hear you.
Yeah, we're not getting any audio, Nancy.
Sorry. Oh, well, you'll be able to listen. Pippa and then, Ronnie and then Pippa.
Hi, my name is Ronnie. I'm down here in Orlando again, but my heart and my soul is right there at Mount Zion. And to miss you, happy Shana Tova to all. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Pippa, I don't know if you're able to unmute. Thank you.
Pippa Major in Mounds View, and just grateful for the opportunity to do it online this year.
Wonderful. And Daniel.
hey, I'm Daniel Sogan, and I actually am in St. Paul, and I am online because I woke up this morning with sore throat and runny nose. So we shall see.
I'm sorry, but thank you for honoring the fact of staying home and keeping us safe too. So I appreciate that. We are live streaming. I just want everyone to know too. So we are now saying hi to probably, my guess is around 1,800 people who are watching us on live streaming. We could only imagine, right? And for folks who are on the live streaming, this is a conversation amongst us, but we hope that you will listen and participate in your heart. Floor is open. Does anyone have anything that they would like to say? Anything that they would like to ask?
I'm going to start and say I really liked the sermon and the way you took a subject that's really a tough subject right now and gave it a really nuanced view and cited the Talmud and the lack of agreement among scholars in history and just where it's at, because I have friends who may believe far differently than I do, and I keep some words in my mind that you said some years ago about have dialogues with people you don't agree with that are respectful and polite. And we try and do that. And I have good friends who I play music with who are evangelicals and just see things so differently. And it's so easy to just think that people who have those views are, that they're idiotic or something else that's derogatory. And I hearken that these aren't dumb people. They're people I admire, that I like, who just have very different views. And I think the way you touched on that really respected that people have those views, and again reminds us that we need to really respect people, respect their rights, and respect, diversity makes our country great, but it also can tear us apart. So I like the way you approached it, and you did that. So I'll put that out there to start.
Thank you, Dave. And that will be a great follow-up, is that if this can inspire more conversations, that will be great. Yeah. Muti, did he say? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Moti, but yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also really liked it, the sermon, and I think that what it in part reminded me of is that, the view of what Judaism would believe about pregnancy and about reproduction and stuff is just not the way, even like up to a couple of years ago, like I really had identified sort of a Jewish position on it more with what I think is the more now fundamentals, like kind of like Christian sort of perspective. That there is this sort of variety of thought, and that it's more unsettled within Judaism. I really feel like it's not as well known. So I was wondering if you had ideas beyond just sort of conversation, even for how to let other people within the Jewish community even be more aware of the diversity of views, and that it's not sort of, life begins at conception within even traditional Judaism.
It's such an important point. What's interesting is that it's not even that life begins at conception clearly 100% for Christianity. And so there's diversity there. It's that it's become a little bit more dogmatic more recently. So I'll just leave that there too. But what's interesting is I tried very hard in this sermon, although we might do this for Yom Kippur. I was thinking about looking at texts related to Jewish texts about abortion, which are the more typical ones that people look at. Most people don't look at the text that I have, but I keep going back to it because it's there, and it's the one that deals with life. And it is, the Talmud always ends with, is more comfortable with ending without making a decision. However, there are codes, there are Jewish laws that sometimes Judaism can't just be theoretical and do make decisions, and then people hold on to that, and then that becomes what the decision is. But for the most part, most people will say Judaism says that life begins at birth. I mean, that's, if that's the shorthand, and there are texts that talk about the fetus being like water and not of life. And so then even talking about the potential life. There's so many different texts out there. The one thing that I do think is that in the public square, even though I referenced the argument about freedom of religion, I don't think that's going to be a good argument, because I fear that this will become a Jewish-Christian diatribe. And that's something that I don't want to see. I don't think it's good for Jews. I don't think it's good for America. And we need to bring in other religious voices too, somehow. I don't know how on that. Pippa?
Yeah, I appreciated the fact too that you brought this back to, it's a very personal thing. I think often we get caught in logistics and rationales and talking about these things as if they're sterile, as if there aren't emotions involved in all of this too. So I was really grateful for that perspective, to remember that we're dealing with people here, not some abstract idea that we can just stick on a shelf.
Thank you for lifting that up. Isn't it amazing how many conversations happen about abortion all the time, and it doesn't feel emotional, like you're saying? And anyone who has been part of, connected to someone who has been pregnant, I mean, it's such an emotional thing. So yes. Other reflections or pushbacks? I also want to mention that Rabbi Adler last night talked about all these different names for Rosh Hashanah as different ways for us to think about it, which we usually just call it Rosh Hashanah and we just walk away, but there are so many different avenues in. So that's another topic of conversation too, if we wish.
So
just-
I listen. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
So
ahead,
I
Dan.
just wanted to point out, Nancy wrote something into the chat, but the people on live stream might not necessarily be able to see the chat. So her audio wasn't working. Maybe I'll just read it if that's okay.
Gregory, thank you. Yeah.
Nancy here chatting since my microphone apparently does not work. I will also want to thank you, Rabbi, for your brave and moving and learned sermon today. And I have to agree that it is brave to talk about a topic like this.
Yeah, as I said, that sentence where I said I wasn't sure I was going to, that was real. I was going on 3 different sermons and I kept coming back to this one as the one I felt like I needed to give and kept thinking, I don't know, I should. So I appreciate that reflection. Daniel.
So I was able to listen this morning. I did not make your sermon, so this is a little bit odd listening, trying to pick up on the topic. However, I've lived long enough to have my own thoughts and views, and only in a way to share a feeling that I have had. I now go by the Planned Parenthood almost on a every other day basis, and my feelings as I watch some of these folks who are very adamant about their view. This is what I'm thinking. They are, of course, standing in the way of the entrance, and well, they're not able to do that, I guess, but they are all on that street near Vandalia. And then I also am thinking of the women who have to go, who have to make that issue, who have decided that what they have made a personal decision. But I get very angry as I drive by those people. And I'm working at that. I will confess that this is a good time of the year to to be very introspective about those feelings, because as I say, it really does hit me as I've gone by. So those are my, having not listened to your sermon, Rabbi, and I apologize, I missed it, but don't know if I'm in far field, but I thought I'd just throw that in.
Well, thank you for your bravery and speaking even without hearing, which is great. And I am so glad that you decided to be decided to be part of this conversation. And that image is one that I think many can relate to, of feeling that people can be willing to put other people's lives in danger to talk about their own feelings about life at these clinics, and that is happening is something that I have to work on my anger with as well. So I'm glad you raised that. And I mean, just to state something that because I wasn't getting into all the specifics about any of this, but Minnesota is now going to be a state of place where people will be coming to for reproductive health care because it's being forbidden in the states surrounding us. So it is going to be a place that probably see more and more of these kinds of protesting right here. So let me ask one question too, which is I haven't settled on this, but on Yom Kippur, there's always a study that I will lead on Yom Kippur afternoon. Would it work for you? Would you be interested in learning about some of this, the text in our tradition about abortion, about pregnancy? Or we can go in a different direction. So if there's any feedback there, you don't have to answer it now, but if you do, feel free.
I think it would be interesting, but I think many topics are interesting. So
good point.
But yes, I'm always interested in taking a deeper dive into some of these things that are relevant now and seeing what our sages have to say about it.
Good.
I certainly would be interested to understanding what our Jewish traditions say about the issue, to be honest.
Yeah. So let me just address one thing that Nancy put in the chat, which I think is really important points. It might have been a perception from what Daniel said, what I said, that anger is something that we need to atone for and manage or feel badly for. And one of the books that we had ever was our community book read a couple years ago was David Jaffe's book, which is called Changing the World from the Inside Out. And I still remember a chapter he has about the importance of anger and channeling it in the right direction. So if it's anger about injustice, that's an okay anger that we need to channel. But, we have to be careful of what it does to us, ourselves too, so that it can be self-destructive. I think one of the challenges, but anger by itself, like most things, is not by itself wrong. So anybody have a favorite name for Rosh Hashanah? This was Rabbi, if you didn't hear her, Rabbi Heller spoke yesterday that this day is called, not Rosh Hashanah in the Torah, but it is called Yom Truah, the day of sounding the shofar. It is called Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembrance. It is called Yom Harat Olam, the day of the world's birth, which I then deconstructed a little bit today. And so any of that resonate for you? I'll share something as a starting point and then feel free to jump in. I think for many people, Yom Rosh Hashanah is just the day I show up at shul. And it's not, you're not thinking about it as in the meaning. And I'm not talking about press and company. I'm just talking about if it's the one of the few days that you show up at synagogue, you think it's just synagogue day. And it's like I hear rabbi and I hear the cantor singing and we do prayers, but I'm not thinking about it necessarily. And then all of a sudden I might be surprised because I hear some words about life and death and meaning and change. Okay, so I'm going to think about my life. And then I start thinking maybe that's what Judaism is. This is the whole totality of Judaism. We're always talking about life and death, always talking about turning and being a better person. And Judaism does get a little lighter than that. And we don't only have these images of God as sovereign, judging us, because it's day of judgment. It's Yom Adin is another name, day of judgment. And that could be a turnoff if it's only thought of as a day of judgment, but that is only one period of time. And we are employing that metaphor for our betterment for this time period, not as the totality of what our tradition has to teach. Muti.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the thing that sticks with me among the names the most really is the remembrance one, because I think that I really try to use going through this time of year as an opportunity both to sort of think about the stuff that I've done over the past year, like remembering stuff, trying to think through the things that I've done, what I've accomplished, and also sort of, this is a time of year where there's a lot of family, like positive and negative things, like in my family, like historically. So it's a good time to sort of think back about there's birthdays, there's like yortzites, there's stuff to remember around this time of year that kind of usually sticks pretty well. So I feel like it's a good theme to stick with for it. And if you'll permit me, I'll say one other thing too. Just the thing that I like best about this time is that it ends with sort of like Sukkot, like it doesn't just sort of stop at Yom Kippur, and then you have like this really, Sukkot is actually my favorite of the Jewish holidays, just like the season and being outside. And I try almost to see that as sort of the culmination of this cycle rather than sort of ending with Yom Kippur. And I think that kind of helps it not seem quite as grave and somber for the whole deal. Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because in many ways, I mean, you can't understand this high holidays without Sukkot. In many ways, traditionally, it's building up to Sukkot, which is the holiday of praying for life-sustaining rain and sustenance and getting us out there physically. So if it just ends with, beating our breasts, that's not the quite perspective. About memory, I will just also say that memory is such a fascinating thing because we are saying that God never forgets. I mean, that's what this Unatana Tokef prayer is about. And so this is about us remembering. And yet part of the whole point of the prayer, if you understand the internal characteristic of it, it's actually reminding God of these things too. So it's as if God has forgotten, which is a fascinating thing. So we're reminding God And that's this memory piece is huge. And that is Professor Yerushalmi would teach. It is what Judaism is all about. It is about memory, not history. 169 times in Torah it teaches us to remember. Never says write down your history. And so it's about keeping it rehearsed so it is part of our life. And so we will forget. And if we remember, then we have to deal with it and hopefully make amends. I think that's part of what, in terms of the familial piece as well. Andy.
For names, in the recovery movement of the 12 steps, it's the step 4. Make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So in some sense, the season is like the step 4 season. You could,
for those familiar, that's it's a helpful reference. Carrie Oletsky has written books about the 12 steps and connections to Judaism, but that's helpful to know. So step 4 is a good way of referring to this time. Thanks. Ronnie.
Also, I do believe that we do have the time, the opportunities to recognize the willingness, the wants to put into actions what we'd like to have in our lives. We are not attached, not unless we want to, but be attached to the goodness, to the divine, and make actions possible. There's one day after another that we should be able to utilize the resources, the infinity of goodness that we can do if we apply properly the laws and we have been learned through our journeys and create new ones. Why not?
Well said. Thank you for adding that. Other comments? I will read your comments, Nancy. I still like the holiday name of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, a time to be. And by the way, was for those who heard Rabbi Adler, Shana, Shinui is change, and it's both change and not change at the same time. And was sort of had a sort of duality within it. And at times we return to our best right paths, but I'm automatically drawn into a time of deep remembrance at this time of year, remembering previous Rosh Hashanahs. And there's both a joy and sadness that sweeps up with those memories. You're speaking to the multiple levels of how holidays work. As you said, I mean, just showing up and remembering who you were or who you were with, and all those different memories is as much a part of this as the liturgy or the meta level too. So I think that's really important. Yeah, I will just share, I texted my sons a picture of our empty table. Our daughter was there with Rachel and me, and we were like, well, we're missing you. And it was the first time not being together. And it's a very different way. Pippa. And then Daniel.
Yeah, I guess I think of remember in a slightly different way, in that it's not about so much remembering incidents, although that comes up plenty, but it's remembering who I can be and kind of a refocus on what's important. The rest of the year got really busy, focused on money, focused on all of those other little details. And it's an opportunity to slow down and refocus on my relationship with my wife, my relationship to synagogue, the things that really matter to me.
So it's there's a discretion in their memory, and it's focusing on remembering the pieces that really matter.
And not so much discretion in the memory as a reminder that it's not all about the little things. That I can shift a refocus back to kind of a touchstone.
Okay, thank you. So refocusing on the things that matter.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I think if a holiday can do that, then amen salam. Daniel.
I actually like that too, but Pippa beat me when I went on mute, and I wanted to just respond to your observation of your dinner, the empty dinner table. I think this is the curse of the empty nester. I was talking to yet another empty nester, and she was just articulating, it's just a really hard time when all of your children have flown the coop, and that that time of the year that's now kind of tough. So I was gonna just pipe in to empathize and get it.
I'm glad you did. And our histories go way back. Daniel and I, our families shared a nanny. We had her Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She was with Daniel's kids Tuesday and Thursday. And that's a long time ago.
It is indeed.
Any other themes or curiosities or want to know what we're doing at 4:30 today? You know, we can talk about any of those things. Tashlich in Montreal, perfect. Muti, I'm glad you were joining us. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Actually, I will, for everyone, I want to share a little known Jewish holiday. Oh, I wish Moody was still here. Actually, I could have told him about this. He probably would have known, which is Hakel. What is Hakel? Hakel is a holiday that happens only 1 out of every 7 years. It's the year after the Shemitah year. Shemitah year is the year that the land lays fallow, and we have just finished last year, the Shemitah year in Judaism. And there's a tradition back in the book of Ezra of the people being gathered to hear the Torah on the first day of Sukkot. So at Mount Zion on the first day of Sukkot, we are going to gather everyone. I'm expecting 200 people to show up for the first morning of Sukkot to hear the service and to participate. And we're providing bundt cakes as an incentive. And if I get a minion, actually, I'll be very happy. So, but you're all welcome and hope you will come.
I wonder, how long does it take to read the entire Torah end to end?
You know, that's a great question. And one question was it the whole Torah? Was it just the book of Deuteronomy that he was reading? Yeah. I should know this, but someone's probably figured that out, Gregory, but how long it takes, but I don't know.
Because that may be a reason, and it may answer one mystery that's always stuck in my mind. The second half of Exodus, all of the IKEA chapters, where they're talking about how to build the Mishkan.
It took me a second, but I'm with you.
Why did that get retained? So it might be that if they really had this tradition every 7 years of reading it in person, that you need to give people time to like get a beverage, use the bathroom, right? So there may have been spacers like that.
What a great theory. We're not going to pause reading the Torah, but we're going to give you certain boring sections so you can do what you need to do. Yeah, I like that. Well, if there are other things, happy to spend more time talking. If not,
I also like the phrase "the birthday of the world." But it's also kind of, I hesitate to use it because when we see things like, the Hebrew year 5783, we don't want to give our neighbors who might not necessarily know anything about Judaism, at least in Menominee, Wisconsin, this is a problem. We don't want to mislead them and make them imagine that most American Jews think the world is 5,800 years old, because of course, most American Jews do not believe the world is 5,800 years old, right? So when you're surrounded by, people who might not know anything at all about Judaism, other than they may have occasionally browsed the front of their Bibles, the few sentences that you utter might double the amount that they've heard about Judaism. So you have to be careful what you put forward.
Which is a grave responsibility. Or they might think what John Stewart says, if you say the year is 5783, so Jews are from the future.
All right.
Okay.
Very cool.
Well, it's funny, by the way, my opening line was, if you ask any kid what they'll say about Rosh Hashanah, it's the birthday of the world. So I asked all these kids in the last week and nobody said that. So I changed it to some may say, but then I looked at our liturgy today, like in the children's service and in the Todd service and the family service, it said it again and again, the birthday of the world. So I'm like, why aren't they saying that? I just assumed that's what they would say. Well, I wish everybody a wonderful Rosh Hashanah day and a sweet new year, and just enjoy. And if you're able to join us for Tashlich, love to see you there.
Thank you, Rabbi. Save to you and your family.
Thank you.
Beautiful day.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Shana Tova.
Good night.
And I don't.